This week on the Galactosemia Podcast, I sat down with Maureen Bell. Maureen has classic galactosemia, and she shared with us what it was like growing up in the 80s and 90s with CG. We talked to her about her advocacy work, including speaking at conferences and before Congress. We talk about the impact of premature ovarian insufficiency, her personal journey, and the changes that she's seen in the galactosemia diet over the years. I really enjoyed having conversations like this one because we tend to talk a lot about what the future holds and the research that's being done, what we can do right now, and what we know about galactosemia. And all of that should be talked about, but a lot of that is also built on stories and experiences from the past from people like Maureen. I think she's a great example of someone that has been active in the galactosemia community for many years now, and she was gracious enough to sit down and chat with us on the podcast. As always, these episodes are available early and ad-free at thegalactosemiapodcast.com. Thank you to our supporters and anyone else that finds this podcast valuable at all. We really appreciate the support. Okay, here's my conversation with Maureen Bell.
The Galactosemia Podcast.
All right, my guest today is Maureen Bell. I'm super excited to have her on. Maureen was born in 1972, and she was diagnosed on day 7 with classic galactosemia at Pennsylvania Hospital in Philadelphia. She attended the first Galactosemia conference ever when she was 18, and that was the same year she was diagnosed with premature ovarian insufficiency. Today, Maureen is 53. She works in childcare, and she's been married to her husband, Bill, for 24 years. They reside just out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She enjoys traveling, going to church, spending time with her family and friends, and she is an outspoken patient advocate for those that live with galactosemia. She has spoken at many galactosemia conferences and has also spoken before a congressional panel for rare disease awareness. Maureen, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
My first question for you before we really dive in, I'm interested to hear from you. I'm sure you've had to explain galactosemia so many times over the years, especially when meeting someone new. You've lived with it for a long time. I'm curious how you describe galactosemia to some of those people who have never heard of it, and how, if at all, maybe that's changed over the years.
The best way that I can describe galactosemia to someone is that I don't have all the enzymes in me to break down the glucose sugar in milk. So therefore, dairy is very poisonous to me.
And have you run across over the years people who mistake that for lactose intolerance or people who mistake it for a dairy allergy? And how do you typically approach that?
Yes, people do definitely think that it's just an allergy. So when they go on a rant as to, oh, you just have an allergy to dairy, can't you just take lactate or, and then I'll say to them, no, it isn't just an allergy. It's more severe than an allergy.
Yeah, and that's like something we're running into a lot, with Elliot, is that balance of, one, it's a complicated science thing. So to really run somebody through it, it's like, how much do you really tell them? And, but also, like, you want to make sure that they don't get it confused with just a dairy allergy, or not just a dairy allergy, but get it confused with a dairy allergy or lactose intolerance or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And when people do confuse it with just an allergy, I'll say to them, it's more than just an allergy. It's really deadly.
Yeah, exactly. And it is deadly too, especially to newborns if it's not caught. Speaking of being diagnosed as a newborn, you were diagnosed in 1972. That was before CG was even on newborn screening. But they still were able to diagnose you days after you were born. What do you know about that time and when you were diagnosed and how that all went down?
Basically, I was born in a teaching hospital.
Okay.
And they had a lot of interns that were just coming in. And one of the interns diagnosed me as having, I read about this in one of my textbooks the other night. I think it's called galactosemia. And he was a very young, new intern. So that was a blessing, being born in a teaching hospital. And when they sent me home with this 32-page booklet.
And you still have it. It's for those listening. It says Parent's Guide to the Galactose Restricted Diet, and it looks like it's from the 70s. It looks
Correct.
like an old pamphlet.
And they sent my mom and dad home with this book and said, don't give her any dairy and she'll be fine.
Really?
Little did they know there would be other complications.
Sure. So when you were born, then, I'm assuming, were they breastfeeding you and you were showing symptoms?
I think no, I don't think I was being breastfed. It was bottle feeding.
Bottle fed, but regular
formula. And I was throwing up a lot, losing a lot of weight. My bilirubin was 32.
Is that high?
That's very high. So they put me under the bilirubin lights and for being jaundiced. And I think that they were going to do some kind of an intestinal surgery on me. But then then I was diagnosed with galactosemia.
Yeah, so they knew something was going on with you in those first few days, and I imagine back then they were probably trying a bunch of different theories. Like you said, they were going to do intestinal surgery.
Yes.
But then an intern that was studying there said, "What about galactosemia?"
Yes.
And do you know at that point, did they run a test were they able to run tests at that time on enzyme levels or Gal-1P levels or anything, or how did they confirm it?
I am not really sure on that, but I know that they took me off of the formula with milk in it, and they put me on Nutramigen.
What's Nutramigen? Is it a soy formula or something else?
Yes.
Okay. And then I'm sure you probably started coming to life like we see with most babies that have galactosemia. Yeah.
I stayed in the hospital for about 3 weeks, I'm going to say. The day I was supposed to go home, my mom turned to the doctor and said to him, she really looks yellow to me. What do you think? And the doctor said to her, let me go in and examine her. So he came back out into her room and he said, there's no way you're taking her home today because my jaundice level was so high.
How old were you when he did that?
I was probably 2 days old.
Okay, so it was right out of the womb. I'm so glad that they were able to catch that. I'm interested in that pamphlet that you held up a second ago. What's in there? Like, can you read us a couple of sentences? Sure. Just flip to some random pages, and I'm so interested into the information they were passing around in 1972.
It says, galactosemia means too much lactose in the blood. Galactose is a sugar which may be found by itself or as part of another sugar called lactose. Lactose, sometimes called milk sugar, is broken down to galactose and glucose in the body. And then,
so it's telling us what galactosemia is,
and then it gives you a little diagram there. I don't know if you can see it or not.
Huh. Have you read through some of that in terms of, like, is there outdated information in there?
It's been quite a while since I've looked at it, to be honest with you. But and then it tells you the treatment for galactosemia, all sources of galactose must be removed from the diet. Most galactose in food is a part of lactose, the sugar found in milk products. By the time your child becomes a teenager, he should be used to this diet and can help to plan it, which is pretty funny. I mean, when you think about it, when your kid becomes a teenager, he's probably going to be butting heads with you. I want to eat that.
Saying that he's used to it, I mean, that's something that we already are starting to think about is, like, how do you make them understand? And then I've heard I even asked Jamie Hegel about it in an episode, or maybe we were just talking at one point. I asked him, did you ever just like try and sneak cheeses? He was like, yeah, when I was a teenager, like I knew I wasn't allowed to, but like you really want to, so you eat one or you try one, you try and sneak it. And so that's funny that they say that in there. I'm sure there's not information about how prevalent speech and sound disorders are. And, there's so much information that we know these days that probably is not in that.
Right.
In that
there's nothing in here about speech development or even going through premature ovarian failure. I mean, even here it says fruits and vegetables can be used in your child's diet unless they have been processed with lactose or any other unsafe ingredient. Which is funny because years ago, there was controversy about having fruits and vegetables in the diet.
Yeah, and we talked to Dr. Sandy Van Kalkar about that. And that controversy is so interesting because it really helped to identify the difference between bound galactose and free galactose and the role that plays in your body being able to process those. And I encourage anybody that's curious about that topic to go listen to that episode because Dr. Van Kalkar does a really good job of breaking that down. But there was that whole period where it was like, no, you shouldn't have tomatoes or you shouldn't have legumes.
Watermelon,
and things like that.
Yeah.
Watermelon.
And it's funny, I've always eaten all of that stuff all my whole life. My clinic has never banned any of that from my diet. So at certain conferences years back when they were banned, they would have certain tables with like a red cloth on it, and then there would be the watermelon or the tomatoes. And
really,
and then at conferences that you can have certain things like just certain treats that they have there. They'll have a green tablecloth so that the green is good for go and the red is no for stop.
And so. Yeah, that's so interesting because they're even in the galactosemia community, probably in the 80s and 90s, there were those foods where it's like some people with galactosemia, like you said, were eating them like watermelon and tomatoes, etc. Yeah. And then some people were not, but you share the same disease.
Yes. And that's one of the things that I always think is interesting. I think that all the clinics need to get on one page and do the same exact thing that everyone else is doing. They just need to agree with each other.
Yeah. I agree. And I think even, and I'm trying to kind of chase down some information about this, but I think even in the UK, they allow some more cheeses. They've done some further testing than like we've done over here. And it's like there's a little bit of inconsistency. Soy sauce has never been on like the banned list for them, but it's on the moderate list for us. And it's like, there's those inconsistencies. That's hard to, especially, we're so new to this whole diet that it's like as you're raising a kid, you're like, can I give them soy sauce or not? And it's like, I guess we'll not for now. But it's hard to know.
Yes. And it's funny because I always think that you're already eliminating one food group from your diet. Why would you want to eliminate something else from the diet?
Right. Right. You're already so limited.
Yes.
Yeah. We talked with Dr. Barry on his episode about how it wasn't really until the 90s that they started studying galactosemia super deeply again. And before that, the medical community had kind of thought they knew what there was to know until Dr. Barry and his team really reopened the research in the 90s again and started studying endogenous levels of galactose and things like that. Can you tell us what you remember about growing up in the 70s and 80s and what it might have been like being a kid in the 80s with galactosemia?
Sure. I can tell you the story about the ice cream truck coming around and all the kids in my neighborhood were running to the ice cream truck and screaming, "Ooh," ice cream, here we go. And my mom would always fill we would have a cone, an ice cream cone in our house, and she would fill it up with some whipped cream, like non-dairy whipped cream, so that it would make me feel a little not so left out with the other kids. Even though I wasn't getting it off the ice cream truck, I was still getting, some kind of an ice cream. And at every party, every birthday party that I would go to of a friend, she would always provide cupcakes or all kinds of dessert treats or desserts for me to share with everyone. I know you had Keith Topper on here, and he said the same thing because his mom kind of clung to my mom and got some ideas off her.
Oh, really? That's great. I mean, that's what the community is for, to share those ideas.
That's exactly right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. He what he said was his mom would, every time he went to a birthday party, she would bring cupcakes for everyone
That's
that
right.
were dairy free.
That's exactly what I would do too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's such a good idea. We've thought about it as, Elliot grows older, of like, if he needs to go to a party, it's what you're speaking to is that piece of exclusion versus inclusion.
Yes.
And I imagine there was quite a bit of exclusion when you're a kid, just in not being able to have what the other kids can have.
Yeah. And that's really hard for a kid to understand.
Yeah.
But I know that by the age of, I'm going to say 5, or a little, maybe around the time that I started reading, I started picking up on ingredients. I always knew what the word milk, how to spell milk and how to spell whey, and all the sirens would go off when I looked at things.
So they were was it your parents who were kind of teaching you growing up? Like, if you see the word milk, make sure you read the ingredients, and if you see the word milk, you can have it.
Yes, and I also have a sister who's 2 years older than me, and she was also looking out for me and making sure I wasn't eating something that I shouldn't be eating.
Yeah, that's amazing. And these days, I often say, like, we are so lucky, my wife and I, specifically, just in that we live in Los Angeles, and like there's a vegan restaurant around the corner. The ice cream shop that's down the block from us has non-dairy options. It's like these days, even outside of LA, like in most places you go, there are going to be a lot more dairy-free options than there were probably in the 70s and 80s and 90s.
Definitely, yeah. If I were a kid in the 70s, or if I were a kid now, I would be like loving life, I mean.
It'd be a lot easier.
Yeah,
but it takes time to get there, I guess.
Yeah.
We mentioned Dr. Berry, and I know you spoke recently at his symposium. Boston Children's Medical did a symposium for him and Harvard that took place when he stepped down from clinical practice. You talked at that. You gave a little speech. Tell us a little bit about that and about what Dr. Berry has meant to you.
I can't say enough good things about him. He's been my doctor since I was 7 years old, so he's about 40 years now, and I think I'm probably one of his oldest patients. And he is just spectacular. Every time we see each other, I feel like he is just so happy to see me, and it's such a great feeling. We did a lot of research projects together. I was his guinea pig. And he's just such a wonderful person.
Do any of those research projects stand out in a memory of like any that really, struck a chord with you, or that you remember years later now? Any of those research projects that you still remember?
Sure. We did do a research project on the fruits and vegetables, and to see how my levels, if they changed at all. And it came out to be that there wasn't any kind of a change in my levels as after eating a fruit or a vegetable. he always told me that you would have to sit down and eat like 40 tomatoes or 40 watermelons in one sitting. And I don't think anybody's going to do that.
No one's doing that. That's really awesome. Over the last, like we mentioned, over the last 20 years or so, things have changed a ton with galactosemia and the diet and the research and what we know. What changes have you noticed watching as someone that, I think you've got a unique perspective of someone that grew up before a lot of this research came out. What are some of the big changes that you've really noticed in the past 20 years?
Well, first of all, like we were talking about, the vegan foods that are now available, and also we're allowed to have cheeses now. I still incorporate some cheese into my diet. But
you do?
Yes. All the hard cheeses, aged cheese, and also in the aspect of kids that are going to school. Back in my day when I was growing up, I never had anything with an IEP and no kind of extra help with my schooling. And now they say that galactosemia is on the list of certain kids that can get IEPs and things like that. And I really wish that I had that back in the day, because I really struggled with learning in school.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What were the areas that you struggled the most with?
My worst subject was math, and I still, even today, I still struggle with percents, and leaving a tip at a restaurant, and just all kinds of things like that. I can do basic math, but anything harder than that, I wouldn't be able to.
Yeah. You mentioned the hard cheeses. We've seen that diet change a lot, like we've talked about. What is your current diet like? You mentioned you eat a couple hard cheeses. What cheeses are those? Are there things that you didn't used to eat before that you do eat now? What's your diet like currently?
I did not eat cheese at all whatsoever. But today I can do all kinds of Parmesan cheese, cheddar cheese. It has to be a sharp cheddar cheese. I can do Gouda. And I can make myself a grilled cheese sandwich, which I never expected to be able to eat.
What's your favorite thing that you have included in your diet now that you've been able to start eating certain cheeses?
I love putting the Parmesan cheese on like a shrimp scampi.
Oh, there is something about the Parmesan cheese. Although I will say the alternative Parmesan cheese alternatives are pretty good, but there is something about like a nice aged Parmesan that, especially over some pasta with red sauce or something, really does the trick. Okay, so you've talked openly in the Voice of the Patient report, where you were featured in there, about POI, premature ovarian insufficiency, also called primary ovarian insufficiency. The effect that it's had on you is something that you've talked a lot about. I've also heard in your video on the Galactosemia Foundation's YouTube, you talked a little bit about it in your biography there. And you've talked about how the effect of POI has been even more than the dietary restrictions. Can you just tell us a little bit about your experience with POI? I think it's something that doesn't get talked enough about. When we talk about the struggles of galactosemia, oftentimes we focus on the diet, and I think POI gets overlooked sometimes, but I know that that's a really, really, really huge part, and so I'd love to hear your experience and just how you have dealt with that.
Sure. Well, growing up as a little girl, I would carry a doll with me everywhere, and all I ever wanted to be was a mom. That's all. When somebody asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? I just want to be a mom. That's all I ever wanted to be. At the age of 18, I still hadn't gone through puberty yet or anything like that. And I went to the doctor, and actually it was Dr. Berry, and just talking in general about, how my life was going, my diet, and, things like that. And he mentioned that some females were having a difficult time getting pregnant and having children. And at that time, I was not aware that premature ovarian insufficiency was part of having galactosemia, as one of the complications. I went to another doctor, an OBGYN, and they did some blood work on me. And also started having symptoms such as night sweats, mood swings, hot flashes, all these things that a 50-year-old woman would go through. And I was having them at 18 years old. And once I had my blood work done, it was confirmed that I was going through premature ovarian insufficiency. And at that point in my life, I had already graduated from high school, and I was working at a child care center in the infant room, taking care of children ages 3 months old to 18 months old. Somehow, I got the news that I had this, and I still went to work the following day. Still having the symptoms of a 50-year-old woman, and I started going on hormone replacement therapy, and that made everything a little bit better. All the symptoms subsided and everything. And I wouldn't go on any kind of dates or anything like that. I never thought I'd ever get married. And it really had quite an effect on me.
But you did end up getting married.
Yes, I did.
As we know now. Can you tell us a little bit about, Bill coming into your life and
Sure.
that turnaround?
Mm-hmm. I was at a church meeting for young adults who were both married and single. They were already into their careers, and we did service projects and social projects, things together. And Bill was there, and he said, he always says that it was love at first sight for him, but I, on the other hand, say something else. And the first 6 months of our relationship, he always says that he was dating an iceberg.
Wow.
Because I was so cold. So, Bill is a pharmacist, and things were getting a little more serious with us, and I thought, gosh, I got to tell him. I just got to tell him. And he came to my house one day, and we were getting ready. I said to him, we have to go up to the pharmacy. We have to walk up there because I got to get this prescription filled. And as we were walking up to the pharmacy, he said to me, why won't you let me fill that for you? And I said to him, well, I got to tell you something. And I explained to him what premature ovarian insufficiency is. And I said, this is what I have. And I was such a slacker at taking my calcium medication. And he said to me, you got to start taking that calcium. And I said, well, do you still want to be with me, And he said, oh my gosh, of course I do.
And the rest is
history.
history.
The rest is history.
One of the things that I've heard from parents who have young girls growing up, the fears of not really knowing how to approach POI it can be a really scary thing. What words of encouragement might you give to girls growing up or approaching that age, or parents that are raising a girl with CG and that might be worried about it?
Yes, I've talked to some parents about this at the conferences, and a couple of them have a really good saying as their child is like playing baby dolls and things like that. And what I would say is, you can have a baby. It just might not come from you. There's other ways that you can have babies.
Yeah, encouraging that open-mindedness almost of knowing that there are multiple ways to have a child and raise a child through adoption or other things. And I know that you have found that you were able to give some of that maternal care through your child work services and nannying and things like that. Can you tell us about that?
When I got out of high school, I first started working in a child care center. And like I said before, it was in the infant room. And I absolutely loved working there. That we had, my gosh, like 5 infants in one classroom. And it was just great taking care of them and caring for them. And as years went by, I found that I became a nanny to a family that had twins. And that was one of the best jobs that I've ever had. Even if you want to call it a job, I never called it a job. It was just so rewarding to me of taking care of these 2 little girls. And I started with them when they were 3 months old. And today they're 16 years old and we still keep in touch with them. They just got their license and they're all excited and everything. And it turns out that the one little girl, she also has a genetic disease called SMA, spinal muscular atrophy.
Wow.
And she wasn't diagnosed at birth. They had no idea. And she was diagnosed when she was 2 years old. She's doing great today, though.
I was going to ask, because I know they actually, I know that through, I've been trying to learn about gene therapy for galactosemia, and there's a gene therapy for SMA that was approved by the FDA. And I think there's some similarities to the ways in which that can be used for SMA that could possibly be used for galactosemia. So that's such a coincidence.
Yes. And actually, when my husband and I lived down in Charleston, South Carolina for about 5 years, his job brought us down there. I also nannied for a family down in Charleston, and the little girl had a stroke when she was in utero. And so I have had a lot of experience with disabled children.
I know you're a very vocal and active advocate for galactosemia causes. You talked before Congress, which is awesome. You participated in the Voice of Patient report. You've talked at Galactosemia conference. What keeps you inspired to tell your story, and what was it like to go through an experience like talking before Congress?
Well, man, I'll never forget the first conference that I spoke at. I was so nervous about just opening up and telling everything. But there was this one in particular parent who got up at the end of my talk who had recently had a baby of maybe 9 months old. Or no, I'm sorry. Might have been, it was a baby that had just been born, 7 days old, and passed away. And the parent stood up and told me that it was decided between him and his wife that they would not have any more children because of the experience that they had with their first child passing away. But that seeing me give this talk and tell them all about galactosemia in my life, that changed their mind. So that kind of gave me a little sense as to that people need to see the good part of galactosemia.
Yeah, and that kind of speaks to why conferences are really important as well. Those happen every 2 years. I know you've been to a lot of them. We've got one coming up next year as well in Colorado. I assume you'll be there. Yeah. What are some things that you're looking forward to in the years to come and conferences that are upcoming?
Well, I always just love seeing all my old friends and making new ones. I wish there was more time to socialize at them. I mean, they put on great conferences there. And the very first one in 1990, I missed my senior prom in order to go to the Galactosemia conference. And without a doubt, there is no way that I regret it at all. I would have done it all over again if I had to. And I love going to the conference every 2 years because I see all these. The first conference, I was one of the oldest ones there. I was 18 years old. And you got kids like Keith Topper, who was 2 years old, and his brother, who was like 1 year old. And each conference, they get bigger, they get older. Well, so do I. But seeing just all my old friends and connecting with them, it's just such a great experience. And I also get to hang out with like the teenagers and it's quite a joy just seeing all them. And I always I regret that there was nothing like that when I guess I'm jealous. No, I would.
That's fair.
Yeah. When I was that age, there was nothing like that. They have the young adult kids go on all kinds of excursions while they're there. They'll go to a baseball game or something like that. And they all hang out with each other.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I can understand the jealousy, but maybe you can find solace. And even though that you didn't have that when you were young, you helped make that happen for others when they're young. Yeah. So without people like you, other people, my son doesn't grow up knowing anybody with galactosemia or able to go on those, trips and things like that. You helped make that happen, and that's a really big thing too.
Thank you. Well, it's funny because when it started out, it was called the Parents of Galactosemic Children. And then over the years, they had to change the name because we were getting older. The kids were getting older, so they named it Galactosemia Foundation.
I think that has a better ring to it anyway. Galactosemia Foundation. Parents of Galactosemic Children is a bit of a mouthful. When you mentioned in 1990 when you went to your first one, you skipped prom to go. That's a big decision. That's prom is a big thing when you're in high school, and you had never been to a Galactosemia Foundation or at that point, Parents of Children with Galactosemia conference before. How did you find out about it? And then why was it so important to you that you were willing to skip this event in your life to go to this thing?
I found out about it through Dr. Barry, because he was one of the speakers that was coming to talk about it. And I really wanted to meet someone else who had what I have. And I really wanted to see what their life was like or how they were dealing with certain issues. And
were you able to do that there? And did you walk away with any hope or encouragement after that?
I walked away on a high.
That's cool.
I was the celebrity there.
So maybe it didn't give you inspiration, but it gave you the high because everybody was like, Maureen, can you sign this? Can you give us your autograph?
Yes. I mean, you yourself can only, experience. You have this little baby and you don't know how things are going to go with them, and here you are meeting other people,
right?
Who are okay,
Yeah. It kind of all ties back to, I can totally understand that, like you said, that high, because what you said is you grew up basically feeling excluded.
Yeah.
Right. You basically, what brought on a lot of your anxiety and your depression, as you've talked about, is that exclusion factor.
Yeah.
And then you go to this conference and it's the complete opposite of exclusion. It is, we want to know you. We want to shake your hand. We want to talk more to you. We want your phone number. We want to call you, right? It's the opposite of exclusion. It's we want to be way more involved in your life because you are somebody that is an inspiration to us.
Thank you.
What did that feel like at the time?
Oh, man, it was great. I didn't want to leave.
You're like, we should do this every month instead of every 2 years.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was wonderful. Even my mom, she was like on a high too, as much as I was. And
Really,
it's funny because a couple of the parents, I'll never forget. The one mom said to me, "Oh, how old's your child?" Not knowing that I had it. And I said, "Oh, I have it." And she went, give some more information here, And I thought,
that's amazing. Yeah, it really is. I think, one of those things is when you have a kid with galactosemia, it's such a rare thing that you don't really know how it's going to affect them. And so you're kind of looking for the hope wherever you can find it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Maureen, I really appreciate you taking the time today. I'd love to end on a high note of just, when you look at all the people that you've met and the people that or you're going to be meeting in the future that are part of this community, this galactosemia community, what gives you hope?
There's so much work that is being done for galactosemia with Dr. Berry and Dr. Judy. And I think that we're on a really good path. And I think we're going to finally go somewhere.
I think we are too. I was talking to Dr. Judy yesterday, the day before yesterday, and she's very hopeful about a lot of things that are coming down the line. And that when people who are way smarter than I am, Dr. Berry, Dr. Lai, Dr. Judy, Dr. Estella, when they are hopeful for something, I'm like, okay, maybe it's time for us to be hopeful because they're way smarter than I am. So, well, Maureen, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really, really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. And can I introduce you to my husband?
Oh yeah, I'd love to. I didn't know he was still there. Hey, Bill, how's it going? How are you feeling, first of all?
Feeling good. Yes, I've had the best nurse possible. I couldn't have asked for a better nurse over. Yes,
that's good. We're talking actually for context, because I'm sure people listening to this don't know, and if it's okay that I could share.
Sure.
While we were trying to schedule recording this episode a while back, you had a heart attack.
I did. Yes, you probably texted me when I was I was in a business trip in Orlando the week of Father's Day, and I was playing golf, and long story short, and then I think I probably was lying in the bed in the ICU, and you text. I said we probably had to postpone.
We should probably postpone, I guess, if you're laying in the ICU. What'd you shoot, I guess, that day? At least
Everybody asked him.
I didn't get past the 7th hole, so I took myself off the course. But yeah. So.
All right. Well, we'll just say you were 6 under.
There you go. I was had the round of my life, but I had to end at the 7th hole.
Jeez. Oh man. What we should do is next time there's a galactosemia conference, we should plan a little golf outing for those that want to join.
Maybe a fundraiser.
Oh, now we're thinking. All right, born on this podcast, a golf fundraiser for the galactosemia. I know they've got some good golf courses in Colorado, so maybe we can make something.
If not, the two of us can go, and
if not, we'll hit the links. Why not?
Absolutely.
Well, Maureen had some glowing things to say about you, Bill. So you've been a part of this for a long time. Is there anything that you want to share at the end of this podcast about what you've kind of witnessed over the last many years that you've been married to Maureen and kind of seen her journey?
Oh, honestly, when I'm sure she probably told you our story, but when I first met Maureen, to me, she was just a beautiful woman, and I know, I wasn't, it wasn't until later she told me about the galactosemia, and I'm sure she probably mentioned the iceberg and all that stuff.
Sure.
But no, yeah. I've been fortunate to part of this journey with her and meeting the Galactosemia community and the Dr. Berries and the Dr. Judys and all of honestly, my first conference, we were married, 2 months? And that was Atlanta in 2001. And I remember a gentleman got up and talked about the changing of the diet of the cheese and kind of, and just seeing the evolution with that and just seeing some of the same families each year and how they've grown up. And it's just, to me, it's just been, wonderful to be on that journey with Maureen and meeting people I never would have met had I not met Maureen and all that. So it's just been, going on 25 years of marriage. So we did something.
Oh,
right.
congratulations. That's amazing.
So-
And Bill does do a talk at the conference on pharmacy.
Yeah, it gets some good. It's like medicines and just health things because, it's not just that, but as, I'm sure Maureen talked about her with her hormonal and all that. It's just, there's medicines and just different, not just galactosemia, but the secondary issues that, children or even adults have, and just kind of just being a resource and help. I'm no Dr. Berry and stuff, but I just try to give my, just my experience and seeing and, what in that type of world, because that can be challenging as well in the pharmacy.
Yeah, and it's all useful, as Dr. Judy likes to say. It takes a village,
right?
Everybody's got some expertise, and you as a pharmacist, I'm sure you've got some experience that can help others. So that's great. I'll make sure I attend that one if you're listening and you're at the conference. Make sure you join Bill's talk,
or we could do it on the links. That's a one-on-one.
Either why not? Por qué no los dos? Why not both? Well, thank you both for taking the time on this Sunday. I really appreciate it, and it was awesome to get to talk to you. And we'll see you at the conference in 2026.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, see you in Denver.